Hello everyone, I am Clara. Welcome to Clara's Story Garden, your cozy escape into the world of enchanting paranormal romance. Sit back, relax, and let the stories sweep you away. Eventually, Clara is 18 when fights between members of her pack and Conri. Later she cannot even remember what started it. She'd been with her brother and other pack mates, hanging out in a bar. One of them, a male named Dylan whom she grew up with and is close to, teases her about something, putting an arm around her shoulders, a familiar gesture she's used to and thinks nothing of. In fact, perhaps he hadn't even done it, she thinks to herself lying in her bed. Perhaps that had been yesterday or the day before. She knows in the back of her mind that Conri is here somewhere in the bar. She hasn't seen him, but she recognizes his scent and has seen a couple of wolves from his pack roaming the place, hoarding the pool table. They've been at it for hours, Dylan complains to Edmund, who just shrugs good-naturedly. Unlike Clara, her brother isn't one for conflict. We could ask them to join in on the game, he suggests, making everyone groan around their table. What? Edmund insists, giving Clara a firm glance. Aren't we past all the petty squabbles from before? Come on. Reluctantly, Dylan follows him towards the pool table, briefly squeezing Clara's shoulder as he passes her. She exchanges a joke or two with the remaining members of the group, takes a sip of her beer, and then a loud crashing noise diverts attention to the back of the bar. She sees Dill ungripping at Conri's shirt, sneering at him as he backs him up against a wall, his scent furious and menacing. Clara is on her feet, getting between the two in an instant. What are you doing? She barks at Dylan. He smells like you, her packmate replies to her great horror. Why does he smell like you? Clara's eyes briefly meet Conri's. He looks like he's about to reply when she cuts him short. We met briefly behind the bar. We had a little squabble, that's all, she gets out quickly, avoiding Conri's gaze. Obviously, that is not what happened. If he smells like her, it's because they were together the night before and all the ones before that. Edmund frowns, suddenly looking so aggressive even Clara is stunned by it. It isn't like him to display so much aggression, but the idea of his sister having been attacked awakens his protective instincts. Edmund might hate conflict, but he's nothing if not protective. You attacked her alone, he spits furiously. Are you insane? You're an alpha now. You could have hurt her. No, he couldn't, Clara protests, though Edmund ignores her, pushing Conri back when the latter tries to explain himself, sending her an annoyed glance. We didn't fight, he begins. Clara's heart freezes in her chest at the thought that he could tell his brother and her pack mates what it is exactly they'd most likely been doing instead. Yes, we did, she snaps without thinking. Edmund screams in rage, throwing himself at Conri immediately. One of his friends intercepts him, tackling Edmund to the ground. Even Clara finds herself having to parry a hit coming at her from one of the girls that had been hanging out with Conri, swiftly getting her to back off when she notices how many humans are staring at their group with shocked attention. That doesn't escape Conri's notice either. Enough, he exclaims, stealing every member of his pack, and to Clara's displeasure ones from her own too. However, his alpha command isn't enough to deter Edmund. Stay the fuck away from my sister, he growls, pulling Clara after him. She briefly glances back at Conri, but he avoids her gaze, making her heart sink. What were you thinking? He exclaims when they meet later into the night. Telling your pack we'd gotten into a fight. Seriously, Clara, what else was I supposed to say? Dylan smelled me on you. What if he'd realized, what then? Conri sneers, turning away. It wouldn't have been worse than them thinking an alpha had attacked you alone. He burning her cheeks, Clara stomps her feet on the ground, feeling utterly powerless. And why not? I could take you, you know I could. Conri's eyes are furious when they settle on her. It doesn't matter. I'm the leader now. I can't just be picking fights with random wolves, especially not ones from a pack that doesn't get along with mine. I'm not a random wolf, Clara screeches, pushing his shoulders aggressively. You know what I mean, Conri retorts with a grimace. Do I? Clara says, unable to hold back the hurt tampering with her words. Conri's gaze softens briefly before he purses his lips in resolve. Clara, you're the one that panicked at the idea of everyone finding out about us. Not me, he says with a helpless shrug. What am I supposed to think, especially when you let all these other wolves touch you right in front of me? There is no us. You and I aren't together, Conri, she protests, heart in her throat, panic clenching her gut. I can do what I want with whoever I. Conri grips her jaw forcefully, making her wince and forcing her eyes to meet his own. They've turned gold, betraying his anger. You're mine, he growls. I'm not, Sera snaps, batting his hand away. He catches hers between his fingers anyway, pulling her to him more carefully. You could be, he says, sagging his forehead against her softly. I want you to be, Sera. Sera's heart does something complicated, like a piece of it is suddenly going missing, pulled from her by force and perfectly against her will to fly right into Conri's hands. Is this a trick? He just said she was a random wolf, throwing his title in her face like it's supposed to matter. She's going to be an alpha too. Doesn't that count for something? She's not his to claim, for what would it mean for her if he did? Her father would never accept it. Her father is going to choose her. Her father is counting on. Why would Conri say this only now and not the day before when he'd held her in his arms, or all the ones before that when he'd had plenty of occasions? Don't, she snaps, pulling away, throat tight. We're nothing. You're nothing to me. Conri pales, searches her face, and looks like he wants to pull her back towards him. Sera finds herself kind of wishing he would. Fine, he spits, turning around abruptly and walking away. Sera thinks of calling after him, her mouth opening on its own accord, but nothing comes past her lips. Is this it, the moment when he grows tired of her? The next day, Conri answers her father's call to discuss the altercation from the bar and apologizes for approaching Sera, swearing it won't happen again. It doesn't. Sera is 20 when her father lets her and her brother know he's decided to make her alpha. It is everything she's ever wanted and worked all her life for, and she'd pictured this moment in her head many times growing up, imagining the pride and joy she'd feel upon hearing the words. She hadn't expected to feel nothing at all. She'd felt numb and empty ever since that night Conri had walked away from her, but she'd managed to keep her head above water, convincing herself it would all be worth it when she'd finally become alpha. Once she'd reached this goal, then surely Conri would. But Sera wasn't sure what she expected him to do anymore. What did she even want him to do? All she knew was that his absence was unbearable, its weight clawing more and more at her heart with each passing day. And that very morning she'd learned of his engagement. He was to be mated to a girl from another pack soon. Sera barely remembered what she'd looked like, that other girl. She'd never paid her much attention. She was the daughter of an alpha and came from an influential pack. She was somewhat pretty. What else? Could she fight with Conri like Sera could? Could she beat him in a hunt? Could she make love to him as well as Sera, learn his body and what he loved the way she had? Would she take care of him and make him happy? Sera? Her father asks tentatively, because Sera realizes she hasn't said a word. Edmund is also looking at her curiously, surprised at not seeing her joy at finally achieving her dreams. Thank you, father, she mumbles, lowering her head. I'm honored. I won't let you down. She wants to cry. She should be happy. Why isn't she happy? Sera will be alpha, but I'd like to entrust you with something important to Edmund. Their father pursues, though not without sending a couple of wary glances towards Sera. He gets up, reaches for a book in his library, and lowering it, unlocks a small safe hidden behind the confines of the bookcase. From it, their father pulls a dagger covered with a protective sheath. This dagger I trust Edmund to make use of, their father says. It's a powerful weapon that goes back generations in our family, and one of the artifacts often being renegotiated in our dealings with Alpha Conri's pack. Sera tenses at the name, making Edmund frown, though he quickly averts his gaze back to their father. Be careful with it, son, as this dagger has the power to kill any wolf with only one prick of the skin. It's laced with a powerful poison conceived for the very purpose. Our ancestors used it in many battles. I trust you to keep it safe. Edmund nods seriously, though Sera pays no mind to any of it. As you both know, Conri will be taking the daughter of a powerful alpha as his mate, which he claims won't affect his judgment when it comes to making alliances, but which we all know most definitely will, their father concludes grimly. You'll have a lot of work on your hands to make sure our pack thrives as much as theirs and doesn't succumb to the influence of another. Her father's words ring in Sera's head as she heads to bed, though not the part about her being alpha or Edmund about receiving a weapon powerful for one reason or another. She doesn't care that they'll have a lot of work in the upcoming years. All that she cares about is figuring out if Conri loves his mate-to-be or not. They are all invited to the engagement party, which takes place in his home 2 days later. Sera wears her most beautiful dress and arranges her hair in a sophisticated updo that leaves her long neck bare, hoping that if anything, Conri will at least think back on their time together once tonight and feel, if not as much regret as she does, then at least something. But it is her who stares at him across the reception hall all night, dancing with his fiancée, making speeches or jokes that have everyone's attention. He doesn't look at her once. Sera feels something die inside of her, crippling even further with each glance Conri denies her, breathless with every touch he gives another, his finger on the back of this girl's dress, his lips whispering in her ears. What could he be telling her but words of love? Words maybe Sera could have heard if only she'd been better and stronger and more interesting, if only she hadn't been born as part of the pack he'd been set to despise, and she into one set to hate them in return. When it's getting late enough that she can't delay going to greet the happy couple any longer, Sera forces her body to move, though it feels like it's been draped in lead rather than red silk. Conri is busy whispering something into his fiancée's ears, that has her eyes sparkling in pleasure. It shakes something loose from Sera's chest. Hello, she greets them, embarrassed at how weighted and dull her voice sounds. On behalf of all my pack, I would like to congratulate you on your engagement. The fiancé smiles brightly at her, offering Sera warm thanks laced with a happiness that is unbearable to witness, knowing what has caused it. Besides her, Conri's posture is relaxed, his face stern in perfect cool indifference as he politely inclines his head at Sera. Thank you, he replies curtly before moving his fiancée away for a dance. Sera's left standing there, mouth closed to gaping at the normality of this exchange. She had expected disdain or at least some form of dislike. How dare Conri act like they're strangers, like everything between them could simply be ignored as a mere detail from the past, instead of the festering wound that it is still very much to Sera. She grins and bears the humiliation with the strength she's been well taught, but which almost fails her too many times to count, until she cannot bear it any longer and runs inside a nearby library to save herself from feeling so much pain, if only for a short while. There she exhales a long painful breath, closing her eyes briefly, hoping to regain her bearings and even better think of a good excuse to leave this party early without looking like a complete indutter. The noise of a door closing shut snaps her eyes back open onto Conri's silhouette entering the library, eyes searching and most importantly, alone. What are you doing here? She asks before she can think of something better to say. What am I doing here at my house? Conri replies curtly. Seraphina says nothing, turning her head to look at a row of books beside her in perfect silence. She may have stared at Conri all evening, but now in the privacy of this room, with nothing and no one between them and what lies there, she finds herself unable to look him in the eye. I should be asking you that, Conri taunts, humor and something darker lacing his words. It isn't like you to hide away from a crowd. Sera can't help but flinch. My father chose me to be our next alpha, she replies, swaying the title like a shield aimed to defend, though what she cannot say. Conri's full lips curl into the mockery of a smile. Well, congratulations then, he says, shrugging his shoulders. It's everything you've always wanted, isn't it? Sera shoots him a dark look which Conri returns tenfold. Don't act like this hasn't been your goal either, she says, chin raised up. You can't blame me for I don't blame you. Conri interrupts, his mouth in a tight line. Sera knows the feel of this mouth against her own. Her stomach plummets at the thought of never knowing it again. Then what is this? She forces herself to say. Why did you follow me here? Have you come to gloat? Conri's expression does something complicated. There are many things Sera wants to say, all of them at the tip of her tongue. But then Conri shakes his head, turning away. Have a good evening, Seraphina. I'll see you at the next alpha meeting. Yeah, he turns back to the door and is about to leave when it's all Sera can do not to blurt out what she ends up blurting out anyway. Do you love her? She hears herself ask with such desperation, she barely recognizes herself. Conri's shoulders visibly tense as he freezes in his tracks. Do I love her? He asks, turning back around, a sneer twisting his features. Isn't that obvious? I'm marrying her, aren't I? Sera feels like she's been slapped, even more so under the intense scrutiny of his gaze, one she's searched for her entire life but that she's suddenly unable to withstand. All right, well then, I'm happy for you, she murmurs. Are you? Conri scoffs. What's it to you how I feel anyway? We were never anything to each other. You've made that abundantly clear. The words are designed to hurt, and they do, hitting against all of Sera's defenses with a precision that leaves her shaking. So now you're going to act like there was never anything between us then? She shakes her head, hurt lacing her words. If that's how it's going to be, then go. I have nothing to say. You're the one that always acted like it was nothing, like it embarrassed you to be with me, Conri barks. He is inches from her now. How did he get so close so quickly? Sierra's mind is spinning from getting such a strong whiff of his scent so close and so angry. I don't remember you pouring out your feelings at every chance either, she argues, some fight left in her still, though it's that of an animal trapped in a corner. I was the one that always had to earn your attention some way or another. Earn my attention? There's hardly any inflection in his voice at all. You didn't turn anything. You always had it. I've always looked at you, always, ever since we were young. No, you didn't. You'd look, but you wouldn't see me, Sierra argues, desperate. I've watched, seen and thought only of you for as long as I can remember, Conri growls, disgust lacing his words like he cannot stand them and must get rid of them. But I'm done now. It's over. His voice is mean and scathing and stirs something in Sierra. She raises her hand to wipe her eyes because she's crying. She doesn't remember when it started. It'll never be over, she tells him darkly. You know it, and I know it. And before Conri can reply, she grabs his face, and their mouths collapse into a bruising kiss, an even harsher version of the ones they'd used to share. Conri's teeth and tongue laying claim to Sierra immediately. She sighs into it, giving ground and allowing him further in. She wants to give him everything, everything he could ask for. His scent is flaring with hunger, one of his hands gliding to the small of her back, the other twisting into her hair, pulling back the pins that had been keeping it in place. Long, heavy blonde curls fall onto her shoulders, which Conri grabs and stares at in awe before burying his nose in them. I want nothing to do with you, he sighs, eyes closing shut as he breathes her in. I love you, she replies, choking on her next words when she sees him flinch like she's just hurt him. No, he says, stepping away, refusing to meet her gaze. Enough. Her mouth opens, tries to hold on to him, but he flees the room without looking back, leaving her alone and feeling as exposed and alone as ever. Later she goes to the magician's shop, though she realizes it is closed, and for good reason, as the time nears midnight. She doesn't know it, but she'll be making her wish the very next day. Sierra is still 20 when she wakes up in her bed in the early hours of the morning, surprised and confused at the feel of wet lips sucking bruises on her neck. She's rather certain she fell asleep alone and should feel fear and distress at the type of wake-up call she's been subjected to. But she feels nothing but warmth and hazy pleasure that is building into something more heated with every second. A familiar scent is enveloping her, mixing with hers in a way she hasn't experienced in years, but has only craved all the more. She becomes aware of the hard press of a body against hers, of hands gripping her hips, but the touch feels so natural and right, she doesn't even think about moving away. Conri? She asks breathlessly, feeling him smile against her neck. She meets his eyes through the darkness. They are blown wide, dark with desire and something else she cannot place immediately. What are you doing here? She asks hesitantly, grazing his cheek with her fingers, despite it being unwise, him being here uninvited in the middle of the night. She doesn't want him to think his presence is unwelcome or worse, to see him leave should she say the wrong thing. Her mind is still hazy with sleep, and she should probably be more rational about their situation, but she didn't think she'd be seeing him again so soon, and certainly not in this context, not with him pulling her towards him, claiming her mouth into a slow though desperately heated kiss. The press of his tongue against her own has her moaning in delight, though the taste of it makes her pull back in surprise. You've been drinking, she accuses, puzzlement twisting her features. Maybe, he laughed, snuggling her neck. I was celebrating my engagement, remember? Sierra runs her fingers through his hair, inhaling his scent briefly as she builds up the courage to push him off of her as she should. About that engagement, she says somewhat reluctantly, especially when she feels Conri's hands roaming her bare leg. Shouldn't you be with your fiancé instead of here? Conri mutters something incoherent against her skin that has Sierra rolling her eyes, forcing him to back away by grabbing. What? She asks again. I said I don't have a fiancé, he replies, looking very much like he's about to kiss her again. I broke off our engagement. He moves to lower his mouth back onto hers, but Sierra moves away, making him groan. What? She asks, searching his gaze. It is loving, though dazed and hazy with intoxication. Didn't want her, he replies, grinding down against Sierra and making her gasp. Conri, she protests with a frown. You said you loved her. You said you loved me, he complains, mouthing the words against her lips. How could I marry another when you love me? He bends down to leave a trail of kisses on her collarbone, and she gasps both from his words and his touch, forgetting all about being too loud for a short moment, tears welling in her eyes. I thought you wanted nothing to do with me, she protests, though without much force. Say that you love me again, Conri replies, eyes crazed with pent-up desire. Say it again, Sera, please. She cradles his face between her hands. I love you, she murmurs, meeting his gaze, watching his pupils dilate even further with pleased satisfaction. She'd always needed him to look at her. Her entire life had been about making sure he'd look only at her. His teeth graze at her skin dangerously. Sera's scent spikes up in response, which Conri doesn't fail to notice, his ministrations becoming all the more pressing. Sera, he eyes as she pulls him back for a kiss. I can't do this anymore. I love you. I need you. She nods against his shoulder, unable to stop herself from pulling him closer. Then you shall have me, she tells him, bucking up against him despite herself. Just maybe not right now, in my parents' house, while you're drunk. But he only starts pulling at her nightgun more urgently, apparently stuck on the first part of her sentence rather than the second. I've been going wild thinking of you tonight, Conri insists, pinning her now naked body into the mattress. Tonight, every night, all the time. He claims her mouth again, moaning when it's Sera's tongue which nips at his own first. It feels so right being one with him again. His fingers feel scorching, his scent wild and dizzying to the point where she wonders if she isn't the one who's been drinking. She must be, for when she feels his teeth against her neck, she pushes his head down harder, urging him on. She wants him to claim her, she realizes. She wants to be his mate and claim him in return. But she thinks to herself, a little belatedly, not like this, when he's not himself. Conri, she gasps, her toes curling in pleasure at the increasing pressure on her neck. Don't. Please stop. Though she says this, only baring her neck to him further, her mind saying no but her body already giving in. His teeth sink into her skin, and Sera screams. The next thing she knows, her own brother's scream joins hers, and suddenly Conri is gasping above her, features contorting in pain. Get off her, Edmund yells, appearing in Seraphina's field of vision, stunning her in place. How did he get here? What did he see or hear? She needs to explain. But then, Conri is sagging against her with another grunt of pain, and trying to get him upright, she realizes something is wrong when her fingers feel something wet and warm dripping down his back. Blood, she understands, recognizing the metallic tang of it before she even stares at her own red-colored hands in horror. Sera, are you okay? Edmund asks, fear twisting his features as he tries to remove Conri's body from her. Did he force himself? Fear and shock stuns Sera silent. She carefully tries to move Conri to his side and catch his gaze. He looks stunned, his jaw clenching from the pain of his wound. What did you do? She screeches towards her brother while carefully settling her mate's head onto her knees. Sera, he forced himself on you, Edmund replies, fury lacing his words. I heard you tell him no. Horror fills Sera's heart upon understanding what her brother had assumed. And furthermore when she recognizes the dagger he's holding in his hands, and with which he'd literally stabbed Conri in the back. Is that father's? Shearing the answer. Edmund purses his lips, doubt flashing behind his eyes. He was hurting you, he repeats like he's trying to convince himself he'd done the right thing. No, he wasn't. I love him, Edmund. Conri and I have been lovers for years. Her brother's eyes widen, but she forgets about him for a moment when Ri gasps out her name, grabbing onto her wrist weakly. God, he murmurs, losing consciousness. She shushes him hurriedly, running her hand through his hair. Stay with me. Don't fall asleep, she begs him, desperation clawing her throat when he grunts, his eyelids fluttering shut. Her eyes meet her brother's, and in his own she can read the accusations, fear, and interrogations, but they're not twins for nothing, and he knows now is not the time for that. I'm going to go get father, he exclaims, jumping to his feet. Seraphina would make her wish in exactly 2 hours, but before that one last conversation would take place. How could you be so foolish, both of you? Their father is unsurprisingly furious when presented with the alpha from their rival pack lying unconscious and half-naked in their daughter's bed. How could you let him come here? Sera's father sneers at her before turning to Edmund. And do you, using this weapon on him when you could have just thrown him off your sister? I thought he... Edmund can't bring himself to say the words, shame twisting his features. Their father rubs a tired hand on his face. This is catastrophic, he says, more to himself than to them. One of you, if not both, are going to have to face consequences for. He waves his hand toward Conri's unconscious body, currently being tightly held by Sera. Our pack's reputation is going to take a serious hit. And let's not even get into the monetary damages we'll need to. Are you really talking about money and reputation while he's laying here dying? Seraphina snaps, appalled. Conri's face is pale and glistening with feverish sweat, his breathing labored. Only sheer will, the desire to keep him alive at all costs, stops her from crumbling down. Is there nothing that can heal him? She asks her father almost reluctantly, for she's afraid to hear the answer. It comes nonetheless, terrible in its finality. None, he says, a slightly more empathetic look crossing his features. I'm sorry, Sera. Why would you even keep such a dangerous weapon at home? She growls, tears prickling her eyes. Why not bury it? Her father shushes her with a snarl. I keep it to protect my family, he replies, making Sera snarl. Conri is like family, she says. He's my mate now. Her father's eyes widen in anger. Your mate? How? The usual way, Sera sniffs, kissing Conri's forehead when she hears him moan in pain. She watches in disgusted consternation as her father begins to pace the room, the beginning of a plan seemingly forming itself in his mind. We can work with that, he mutters under his breath. Conri's an alpha. He forced his way into your room at night, forced himself on you and claimed you. Your brother defended you. I wanted him to claim me, Sera protests, furious. Well, you'll keep that to yourself if you want you and your brother to live, her father barked, lacing his words with all the alphacum and he could muster, which, to his credit, a lot. Sera feeling the order freezing her body all the way down her spine. Edmund, come with me. Sera, stay here with him. We'll need to prepare for council meetings and stand for trial. If we get a head start and have the packs come to us instead of waiting for Conri's people to confront us, it'll look better. Sera is left alone, faced with her desolation and her mate's dying breaths. She holds his face against her chest, murmuring comforting words to him in the faint hope that they should reach him somehow and make him hold on a little longer. I'm going to fix this, she tells him. You're going to be okay. I promise. Sera bangs on the magician's front door as the sun barely rises in the sky, begging for him to open up for what feels like hours. In reality, it barely lasts over 5 minutes, because I'm a light sleeper and I'm quick to rush down and let her in. Please, she begs me, grabbing my hand. We don't have much time. Go get your boss. Normally I wouldn't dare go wake Merlin up under any circumstances for fear of getting cursed or worse, but I know Sera, and I know he likes her well enough, so I'm hopeful he'll forgive me for it when faced with the sheer desperation marking her features. Merlin follows me into the living room a short while later, hair a mess though it often is, only to be greeted by Sera's terrified though determined gaze. This time, there'll be no changing my mind, she declares, standing up from her chair and clenching her fingers. You're going to grant me a wish. I don't care what it costs. Sera hasn't aged a day when she comes back to the pack's headquarters, but she feels like she's become an old woman. Her body is sore and slow, each movement heavy and difficult. Colors, smells and sounds all seem different now, dulled, like she's entered a new watered-down dimension when in which she feels cold quickly. But mostly she feels empty and alone, and barely realizes she's arrived back at the pack when her brother erupts from their home, waving at her excitedly. Conri's awake, he tells her, grabbing her hands. He's fine, fine. They're discussing what happened with father and the other alphas. But since he isn't sick anymore, it's all going to be. Sera. Edmund interrupts himself when he notices Hister's distant, empty gaze. Did you hear me? She's heard him and feels infinitely better knowing Conri is healed, though she had no doubt he would be since it's what she'd wished for. Sera, Edmund insists, grabbing her shoulders. What's with the long face? Are you still angry with me? You can relax. Your mate's fine. He isn't my mate, Sera replies, staring down at her feet, which she only realizes now are bare. But I thought you said. That was before, Sera says, interrupting Edmund and moving away. Behind them, their mother is exiting the house and sprinting towards them. Seraphina, where have you been? She says when she's reached them. They're asking for you inside. What's this I hear about you and Conri being mates? We're not, Sera replies, tone flat. Their voices sound different now, she thinks. It's like when you hear yourself on a film and don't recognize the sound of your voice. It's like that, except with everything. What's wrong? Sera's mother says, taking her face between her hands. What happened, baby? Sera doesn't reply, keeping her eyes firmly down. It's not that she doesn't want to, it's that the words are stuck in her throat. She thinks maybe if she doesn't say them, it won't be true. Sera, her mother insists, before finally it clicks and her eyes widen in horror. Oh my God, she exclaims softly at first, and then more loudly. There's ringing in Sera's ears, and her feet are cold against the grass. Her mother is screaming in horror, and Sera can't bear to meet her eyes. Edmund joins in on her mother's questions, she thinks, but she isn't sure. He's probably distressed, for he must have realized by now, she thinks. Before, she would have known his distress, for it would have pervaded his scent, but Sera can't smell him anymore. She can barely smell anything, and it's so strange and frightening. "Your wish is for your mate to recover?" the magician had asked, eyes growing somber, like he'd understood this time after so many years he wouldn't change Sera's mind. "Yes," she'd nodded, tears welling up. "He's dying, Merlin." Merlin and I had shared a look before he spoke again. "I've told you the rules before. If I grant your wish, I'll have to take what matters most to you." Sera had frowned. "Conri is what matters most to me." "Does that mean if you save him, you'll only?" Merlin had shaken his head. "They don't take existing people, but if he's what matters most to you, and again I say if, because you can never know for sure what it'll be, then what will happen is that you'll probably have to be apart. He'll be alive, but not with you." Sera's shoulders had sagged. If the choice were to let Conri die or resign herself to be apart from him, she'd take the second option. She'd still had hope that somehow they could find their way back to one another. She'd been scared her entire life of not being able to love him freely, but she was done letting that fear control her. She was determined to be with him. "Do it. Save him," she then insisted. "It's what I wish for." Merlin had reached for her hand, closing his eyes and remained silent for a second. Then he'd let go of it abruptly. "You're with child," he'd said, looking conflicted. "What?" Seraphina had looked taken aback, full of frightened disbelief. She'd remained still and silent for a moment, eyes drifting back and forth through different random areas of the shop. "I can't be. It hasn't been even 24 hours since we've last." She interrupts herself, realization dawning on her features. "You can feel it?" Merlin had asked, eyeing her carefully. Seraphina had nodded reluctantly. "I think so," she'd replied, "or at least my wolf can. It feels protective already." "What does it mean?" I interrupted. "Is there a risk the wish could harm the child?" Merlin's eyes had looked conflicted for a moment. "I'll tell you what it is I'll be taking before you make the wish." I'd gasped in shock, as he'd always sworn to every client I'd ever seen him speak with that knowing in advance what they'd be losing for making their wish was against the rules. "But you said—" I began to protest, losing my words as Merlin's cold eyes snapped to my face. "It's fine." Sera looked at us, slightly startled but too preoccupied with her situation to be deterred. "We don't have much time," she pressed. Merlin grasped her hand again, and paused as he shut his eyes to concentrate on his magic. "What matters most to you is being Conri's mate," he'd said, making Sera nod like she'd expected as such. "So I'll be making sure you'll never be able to be mates by taking away the very thing that makes it possible." Sera had frozen in place as understanding dawned on her features. "You mean my wolf?" she'd asked eventually in a toneless voice. "You're going to make her human," I'd summarized more for myself than for Sera. "Yep," Merlin had said as Sera had put her hand on her stomach, looking very much heartbroken. "But my baby, he'll have a wolf, surely," she'd whispered, eyes brimming with tears. "There's a good chance, yes," Merlin had replied gravely. "You probably won't be able to raise him." He looked paler than usual, slightly ashen, the result of breaking the rules to tell Sera about what she'd been losing, I'd realized but kept to myself, for our client had enough on her plate as it was. Sera had closed her eyes, taking a deep though shaking breath. "Do it," she said in a toneless voice. "Grant my wish." Sera hadn't felt her wolf leave her body. One minute she could feel it howling painfully against her broken mind, the next it was gone, like it had never been there. It hadn't hurt exactly, but the abrupt dulling of her senses, the uncomfortable physical sensations had made her gasp in shock, but mostly it was this absence, this nothingness in her mind that had made her sway on her feet and scream. Now she was back with her pack, but she couldn't sense them, guess their emotions through their sense, or know by instinct how to act or react to them. It was frightening, but not as devastating as feeling so alone and broken, like she'd lost not just a limb, but an entire part of herself. "How is this possible?" Edmund asks, searching Sera's face while her mother begins to cry, alerting her father, whose head erupts from the house to check what's going on. "It was the magician," she explains in a toneless voice, "because it doesn't matter now. The one who grants wishes and lives in town. You went to see him. Seraphina doesn't hear, feel, or sense Conri's presence immediately, so it's slightly disconcerting when he suddenly enters her field of vision. At first, there's a bright hopeful smile on his face at the sight of her, but it falls immediately when he meets Sera's gaze. "What's wrong?" he asks quickly, making his way to them, followed by another alpha who must have been here to judge what had happened earlier with him and Edmund. "Did this magician do this to you? Take your wolf?" Edmund asks, looking pale and shocked. "I asked him to," she explains, "before their brother or father can get it in their head to attack Merlin for what he'd done." "Why would you do that?" her brother laments. Conri reaches them, pushing his way and taking her face between his hands. "Look at me," he asks her, but she doesn't. It hurts to look at him, knowing he'll never be hers now. "That's how he healed," her father says as he sends Conri a somber gaze. "Magic." Conri ignores him, focused on softly asking Sera to look at him again. Grazing her cheek with his thumb, she pulls away. "I'd like to be alone now," she tells them. She flees before anybody can retort, ignoring the fact with her being human now, they could all easily catch up to her. It probably means something that none of them do. Sera is 21 when Conri insists on seeing her. It's been a week since the incident, wondering which her birthday has come and gone unnoticed. She doesn't notice much though. She vaguely hears her brother arguing with her lover outside her door. She doesn't want to see anybody, Edmund says, or something along those lines. "I don't care, it's been days. I need to talk to her," Conri insists, muttering something else Sera can't make before bursting into her room. Sera is sitting by the window, still hugging her knees, her hair a loose mess against her back. Conri's eyes widen when they see her, and she thinks she must make a sorry sight with the bags under her eyes and blank human smell. "Sera," Conri says, like the words have somehow unlocked his ability to breathe again. He drops to his knees beside her, pulling her in his arms. Sera tells herself not to get used to it. "What are you doing here?" she asks in that dead blank inflection that won't seem to leave her voice. "What do you think?" Conri sighs, breathing her in. "Do I smell strange?" She can't help but ask, the tremor of something shaking her words. Conri buries his face in her hair. "You smell like you always do, but fainter," he replies cautiously. Sera closes her eyes. "It's good that you came," she tells him, feeling his shoulders sag in relief. "I've been wanting to talk to you." Conri lets out a startled laugh. "You've been wanting to talk? Is that why everyone's been forcefully keeping me away from you this last week?" Sera ignores his last comment, because if she doesn't speak now she doesn't think she'll be able to get the words out, even though she's been preparing to say them, repeating them in her mind practically ever since she'd made her wish. "I'm sorry I disrupted your engagement," she says, looking outside her window because she can't bear to look at Conri. He laughs again. "Don't be," he begins, but Sera interrupts. "I'm sure if you try hard enough your mate-to-be will reconsider, and if not, there are plenty of others who." "What are you talking about?" Conri asks, sounding sincerely confused. "You're my mate." "I'm no such thing," Sera snaps, feeling like she's choking. "I'm a human now." "So what?" "So you know as well as I do that mating bonds don't exist with humans, which was the entire reason why she was human now, though she doesn't tell Conri that." He remains quiet for a moment, though doesn't let go of her. "Does this bother you?" he finally asks. "That we can't be bonded?" Sera's stomach drops. Is he really so indifferent then about the fact that they can no longer be together? "When I told you I loved you, I meant it," she says, feeling tears welling up in her eyes for the first time in days, like they'd been waiting for him to escape all along. "Or did you think I was just saying this to aggravate you?" Conri looks startled and pained. "I meant it too," he quickly intervenes, searching her gaze. Sera rolls her eyes. "You never actually said it," she mutters, hiding her face between her knees. She feels Conri put his arms around her once more, his forehead resting against her arm. "I love you too, Sera," he sighs. "I thought it was rather obvious. Pretty much the entire world but you has noticed it." "Hardly matters now," Sera cuts, a heavy finality to her words. Conri tenses against her but doesn't let it go. "Why would you say that? It's all that matters to me at least." "Are you stupid?" Seraphina snaps. "It was always near impossible for us to love each other. Or at least I thought it was, except it wasn't, but now it is." "I'm confused," Conri confesses, taking her face between his hands. She frowns, wondering if perhaps he really hadn't realized the situation they were in now. "Conri, you're a wolf and an alpha. Wanted that. I'm a human. I can't be your mate. You'll need one if you want to remain the leader of your pack." "I know that," Conri replies with a shrug that has Sera wanting to shake him in anger. "I won't be able to live amongst you, let alone be your mate." Conri rolls his eyes, putting his hand against her mouth to shut her up. I already told my pack I renounced my title. Of course we couldn't possibly live near them or near yours, he says quickly, adding when he sees Sarah's eyes widening, you really think I'd let my mate live somewhere dangerous? I'm not your mate, Seraphina says, despite the foolish hope blooming in her chest. You are, Conri insists. Though if you're against that appellation, I hope you'll at least do me the honor of being my wife. I hear humans are perfectly satisfied being husbands and wives instead of mates. Sarah shakes her head in disbelief. Conri, you can't. You've worked your entire life to be alpha. I can't let you give it all up for me. You can't let me give it all up? Conri looks appalled. I'm barely giving anything up. You on the other gave your wolf for me, Sarah, a major part of yourself. If you think for 1 second I wouldn't make a sacrifice infinitely smaller than the one you've made in return, then you're... I'm pregnant, Sarah interrupts, watching his face intently. She'd expect to see it crumble, but Conri merely looks surprised for a second before pure joy crosses his features. You are? He asks breathlessly. I may not survive the birth. I won't be able to look after him. Is it mine? Conri asks, eyes wide with disbelief and hope. Sarah groans. Who else's would it be, you fool? There's never been any others. Sarah is 22 when I see her next. Merlin has asked me to deliver a baby gift to her, which for some reason he refused to deliver in person. I suspect he feels guilty for what he'd done to her, even though it was hardly his fault. Just like it was hardly anyone's fault, really just a matter of circumstance. He'd done his best to help her, something I hadn't expected of him, having worked for him for a little while now. I knew he didn't much like granting wishes, for that rarely ended well for his clients. But I'd never seen him endanger his health the way he had by breaking the rules so openly as he had for Sarah. He must have been quite fond of her, despite his protests. Seraphina is holding a 4-month-old baby when I arrive at her home. She is thinner than I remember, looking more frail, but her baby is healthy, and so is her husband, so she seems happy with how things have turned out. This is a gift from Merlin, I tell her, handing her a small box. Conri looks like he's seriously considering ripping it out of her grasp, but she appeases him with a glance. What is it? A promise from him, I explain. Should you or someone from your family need help, tell them to come to the shop with this ring. Merlin will do whatever he can to help. Could we go now and have him make Sarah a wolf again? Conri asks. 'Cause we're days away from giving up our son to her brother for safety, and she may not show it, but it's keeping her awake at night. We already decided we wouldn't risk going back, Sarah says, looking at her child resolutely. Unfortunately, this type of request would require you to make a wish anyway, I explain. But if there's ever anything else we can do. You've done enough, Conri snaps, showing me out. Thank you, Seraphina tells me over her shoulder. Tell him thank you. Her gaze meets mine. Despite everything, she does seem grateful, especially when her eyes settle on Conri, whom I think she knows wouldn't be here without Merlin. I wonder if I could ever love someone that much, I asked myself on my way back to the shop, to the point where I'd sacrifice everything. Have you ever been in love? I asked Merlin curiously a couple of hours later while closing the shop. He doesn't reply. Thank you for listening. If this story touched your heart, give it a like and subscribe for more beautiful tales. Tap the next thumbnail to continue your journey.